Hello, welcome to Let's Talk with Aaron Johnson. This one, this is episode 4, and this episode, there are going to be some things that aren't going to please people. And I'm sorry. Well, I'm not really, because what I'm going to give you are the facts and how what is currently going on in our country has to do with the Constitution. And we all, if you've watched any of our other episodes, you know that I consider myself a constitutionalist, which means that what goes on in our country has to line up with the Constitution or any laws passed constitutionally. So let's get started. How about we? On this episode, we're going to be discussing citizenship of the United States and what it means. We are also going to be talking about treason to the United States and also voting in elections and immigration, legal and illegal immigration. Now, I know this is a very hot topic, and which is one reason why I've waited a little bit to record this video, because as I've said before, I try to keep my emotions out of what I'm talking about and just give the facts. And this topic really, really angers me. Number one, because of the ignorance of so many people. And when I say ignorance, I'm not calling people ignorant or stupid or anything like that. It's ignorance. It's lack of education, lack of knowledge. Okay. That's when I say, when I speak about ignorance. It's not a name calling situation. We've turned some words that have a proper meaning into negative meanings. So the ignorance of people who spout and talk and talk and spout and really don't understand and don't know what they're talking about. And it just takes a little bit of time to educate yourself, to read about it, and allow yourself to mentally be better at what you're doing. Okay. So that's what, when I am talking about ignorance according to this subject and this topic, that's why. Okay. So I don't want people to think that I am anti immigration, anti immigrant, because I am not. Our entire country is based on immigration. Okay. Our Constitution was written technically by immigrants, because the only people who are native to the United States are Native Americans, all the different Native American tribes, Indian tribes, as the uncouth or some people call them. So I have to be careful with that. I want to be careful with that because I don't want to offend anybody. But our entire country is based on immigrants, has always been based on immigrants. Okay, so let's start this conversation. Okay, so our first point today is going to start with the 14th Amendment. Okay, and Section 1 of the 14th Amendment says this in part: all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Now, if you notice this, all persons born, so if you are born in the United States to American citizens, United States citizens, then you are considered a United States citizen, plain and simple. That also goes into effect for military families who have their children born on military bases, because the way we have our contracts and such things with these other countries, it we consider those military bases as part of the United States. So therefore, they are considered United States citizens as having been born in the United States to American citizens. And then it says, or naturalized. Now, this has to do with legal immigration. These people who go through the process of becoming United States citizens, they fill out the proper paperwork, and then they go through all the legal channels, and then they immigrate to the United States, and they choose to make the United States their country. Okay. And there are ways to do that. You got to take a citizenship test and all these different things. And I really don't know the whole process. I've never actually, I probably should look into that. I'll make myself a note to do that. Um, but these people came through legally. Okay. So those people, once they have gone through the entire process, and then they have gone through, whatever it takes to become a naturalized citizen, then they are considered a citizen of the United States with all the rights and privileges of a natural born citizen. Okay. So they are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, which means they have the right to trial by jury, the right to carry firearms according to the Second Amendment. They have the right to voice their opinion according to the First Amendment. Um, and so it says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Okay. So we can't, according to this, we can't hold an Irishman who has an Irish immigrant who has gone through the entire process and become a United States citizen. We cannot make laws to go against Irishmen. Okay, that's just picking one, because there was a time when Irish, during the immigration, when Irishmen were considered second class citizens. That was in the early 1900s. It was rough. Okay, 1800s, 1900s, thereabouts. And also, it goes on, and this is also, we're talking about the United States citizens. It goes on and says, no state, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. This is talking about citizens of the United States. It is not talking about those who are undocumented or illegal immigrants. These people do not have this protection. They do not have the protection of due process because they are not citizens of the United States. I know this may make some people mad, but this is what it says. Okay? So you cannot, if you are an illegal immigrant or an undocumented immigrant, let's go with that because you don't want to offend too many people. An undocumented immigrant, you have no protection in our country. Okay? I don't mean to be rude or to upset too many people, but that is the truth. That is, according to our Constitution, that's the way it is. And there's no laws that have been changed according to that. Okay. And by their very actions of and by the very name of either undocumented or illegal immigrants, um, by their action of entering our country, without our permission and without going through the proper channels, it makes them a criminal. Doesn't matter if they haven't done anything against our laws since they've been in our country. The very act of them crossing our borders without properly filling out the documentation and without properly getting our permission and us allowing them to come into our country legally, they are a criminal. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay. They are not a United States citizen. They are not covered by our own laws. They're criminals. If they have entered our country without going through the proper channels, they are criminals. Period. Doesn't matter if they don't ever speed while they're driving across our traffic on our roads. They are still a criminal. Plain and simple. I mean, honestly, it really is just that simple. Okay. And they are not required to be protected by our state or the country. Absolutely not. They're illegal. They're criminals. So when we round them up and send them back to their country of origin, they're not due process, period, because they're not a citizen, whether born to United States citizens in this country or in a territory owned by our country, or naturalized, which the only way you can become a naturalized citizen is by filling out the proper paperwork and entering our country legally. That's the only two ways that you have our protection as a country. It's not that hard. I mean, it's really not. It's that simple. This entire debate, if people would take the time to educate themselves, then they would understand that it's that simple. This entire debate would be over with if people would pay attention to this and understand what this is all about, okay? So, by the very action of trying to protect those who illegally enter into the U.S., the Congress people, and I don't want to say congressmen or congresswomen, we'll say Congress people, and state governors and the mayors of these, what do they call them, sanctuary cities. These people, these congressmen, these congresspeople, and governors of these states, and these mayors of these sanctuary cities, they are denying these citizens, the U.S. born or naturalized citizens, the legitimate citizens of life, liberty, or property. Because, why is that? Because they're taking a lot of the resources that are intended for citizens of the United States, whether naturalized or born. And we're just going to say citizens, okay? And it's going to be implied that it's naturalized or born citizens. They're taking the resources that are intended for these people to help them in a time of need, or Social Security, such things like that. They're taking these things and they're using them for non-documented or undocumented or illegal immigrants. Period. Okay. Now, so some of these illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants, they seem to like that word for all of a sudden, because they don't want to point out the fact that it's technically illegal. And by the very use of illegal immigrant, they are verifying that they have no protection from the United States. So therefore, they want to go undocumented. They want to go undocumented. It's the same thing. It's six on one hand and half dozen on the other. It's the same thing. Okay. Because some of these, not all, mind you, not all, and maybe not even a majority, but I'm going to say quite a few, are violent and they have murdered and committed other crimes in the United States. Now, why would United States Congresspeople and state governors and these mayors of these sanctuary cities want illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants in their country, in their areas, to and they supply them with IDs and all these different things. Why do they do that? Why do they want that? Well, Section 2 gives us a little more about why. Because Section 2 says representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. So it's all about money and representation. If they can get these undocumented immigrants into their areas, then they have swelled the voting rolls so that they can get in the people that they want, the ones who are going to send them more money and give them more money and keep supplying them money, which they take off the top. You can argue that all you want, but we know it's true. And then, so that's the 14th Amendment, okay? So that's the 14th Amendment. That's just one little piece. So Article 3, Section 3. So Article 3, Section 3. The amendments were added after the Constitution was written by the state, by how the Constitution allows it to be done. It was done properly, was voted on by 4/5, 3/5, a majority, however it is that the Constitution says they can. That amendment was added, and that amendment was actually passed on June 13th of 1860. 1860. And it was ratified July 9th of 1868. So it took 8 years and almost a month to get passed. That's how long it took for them to work that out. Okay, so that's why this stuff is not simple as far as just coming up with it. It's got to go through the legal process. This amendment, the 14th Amendment, had gone through that process, and that's what the government said. That's what the representatives and the states declared in 1860, and then 1868. Okay, so if you go on to the actual Constitution, this was written and passed at that time. Okay. Article 3, Section 3 of that says treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of 2 witnesses to the same overt act or on confession in open court. The Congress shall have power to declare the punishment of treason, but no attainder of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attainted. In other words, if my dad had committed treason, the last paragraph here, if my dad had committed treason, they couldn't hold that against me. Okay. That's what that last paragraph said. But let's focus on that first paragraph of Article 3, Section 3. Now, the President of the United States and his representatives, his cabinet members, have declared that there are certain gangs, foreign gangs, and we'll go with MS-13. Okay, they have declared MS-13 as a terrorist organization and enemies of the state, of the country. All right, so having said that, And having declared that and done all that they're supposed to do for that to be done legally, what does Article 3, Section 3 say? It's Constitution, people. Look it up. If you think I'm making this up, I'm not. I promise you, I'm not. This is what the Constitution says. Treason shall either be consisted of only in levying war against the United States or in adhering to their enemies. Adhering, clinging, hanging out with, protecting. Does it sound familiar? Hmm? It does, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah, it does. It should. If you've been paying any attention to the news lately. Okay. But that doesn't stop there. It says giving them aid and comfort. So this is tough. Okay. So we have Congress people who are openly defying the government, openly saying that members of, non undocumented immigrants to be removed from the country. We even have court judges that are saying this, you know, just now. They're not, they're saying that we can't deport them to their country of origin. So, to me, and any definition of adhering means that they're they're committing treason against the United States openly, openly. Okay, and it's recorded, so there's no denying it because it's recorded. Okay, that's the first thing, and then of course giving them aid and comfort. Those people who these undocumented immigrants are working for, are they giving them aid and comfort? They are, aren't they? Because they're paying them for their work, right? Giving them a place to sleep, helping them do what they need to do, to whatever. Those people are committing treason against the United States because these people have been declared enemies of the state, enemies of the country. So, therefore, by that simple declaration and then by their actions, and these are the ones I'm mainly talking about are representatives in our Congress who have been voted in to office. They either need to be removed from office because they're committing treason, and barring that, then they need to be voted out at the next election by you. Your When you go to vote to the polls, you need to remove these people because they're committing treason against your country. They are weakening our country, your country, by their very acts. Do we understand that? I mean, do we really understand? This is not any other thing except weakening the greatest country in the world. And why? Why? The 14th Amendment said why? Because it helps them get more representation, more people. I have no problem with immigration, with people entering our country legally. I don't, because I have some great friends that I hang out with after work, during work, around work that are immigrants. They are not natural born citizens of the United States, but they all entered the country legally. And I hang out with them. I have a great time with them. They're fun. So I'm not being racist, prejudiced, or against immigration because I'm not. Absolutely not. I think it's fantastic. Who wouldn't want to share our country? But let's share it legally. Let's share it right. Let's not deprive our natural citizens, our born citizens or our naturalized citizens, of their right of life, liberty, or property, which is what happens when we are allowing these undocumented immigrants to enter our country and stay here. And when we are giving them food and a job, or we're taking benefits that should be given to United States citizens and we're giving it to them to keep them here because it helps us. And when I say us, I'm talking about the people that are running for office that want to use this. To use this to go against the United States. Okay. So this brings us on to, you know, you're listening to this and you may think, well, that's, you're being prejudiced against others. I'm not at all. This is simply the Constitution and what the Constitution has to say about what's going on today. Um, I have no sympathy. And I know that, there's been news stories and people panicking about people being arrested when they go in, when ICE goes in to arrest an undocumented immigrant and they're sweeping up other people that are there. So how about we just go back here to Article 3, Section 3, and it says that that you are committing treason against the United States if you're adhering to the enemies, if you're in the same location with them, or they're living with you, you're adhering to them. And if they're living with you or you're in the same place, then you are giving them aid and comfort. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Hate that for you. But if that is what you're doing, then yeah, enjoy those handcuffs. Enjoy that time in prison until you get it sorted out. I have no sympathy for that. None. Because our country, we make it fairly simple for people to get into our country legally and to become United States citizens. It's not that hard. Okay. So I don't want to hear, well, they just need the opportunity. Fill out the paperwork. Fill out the paperwork. It's not that hard. If you need help with it, let me know. I'll help you fill out the paperwork. Really will. Okay? But let's move on because I know that this is some are getting upset right now. So let's move on to other amendments that cover other things that people were against. Okay, the 15th Amendment. Um, you cannot be stopped from voting by the United States or any state because of your race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Okay. But let me read to you the first part of the 15th Amendment, Section 1. The right of citizens of the United States to vote. So the right of citizens of the United States to vote cannot be abridged by race or servitude. Now, this was written, the 15th Amendment was passed in 1869 and was ratified in 1870. Now, for those of you who may not know what that is, that was right after they had freed the slaves, right after the Civil War. Okay. And that's another whole section because there was all kinds of laws passed that was illegal to that. And we'll go on because there's other, the 24th Amendment addresses some of the other issues that happened because of the 15th Amendment. In the South, they, to keep African Americans or slaves from voting in elections, they developed a poll tax. You had to pay a certain amount in order to be able to vote. So the 24th Amendment, which was passed in, let's see here, it was passed in 1860 or 1962 and ratified in 1964, so almost 100 years. Wow. Uh, it's kind of scary, isn't it? The 24th Amendment also says the right of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for president or vice president, for electors for president or vice president, or for senator or representative in Congress shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state by reason of failure to pay poll tax or other tax. They were trying to keep them from, because, I mean, they didn't have a lot at that time for that 100 years. They really didn't. And so people trying to control the elections will charge a tax they can't come up with. So in 24th Amendment, they're like, all right, we'll take care of that. So I jumped ahead a little bit on that one because that one kind of ties in with the 15th Amendment. So I wanted to kind of add those two together. But again, if you'll notice, the front of that paragraph says the right of citizens of the United States to vote. So now it's back up to the 19th Amendment, which was passed in 1919 and ratified in 1920. And it says the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. So that's when ladies got the right to vote by the 19th Amendment. I don't know why we kept them out of it because, in my opinion, they're some of the smartest people we know. But the 26th Amendment. So let's move on to the 26th Amendment. This was passed in 19 it was passed in 1970, March 23rd of 1971. And in less than 4 months it was ratified July 1st of 1971. This amendment, the 26th Amendment, was ratified. And the 26th Amendment says the right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of age. So, if you're 18, you can vote, and you should. You should always vote. And Article 1, Section 9 talks about the migration, importation of people. Mainly that had to deal with slavery at the time, but it does actually mention migration. So I wanted to talk about it. Says they can't be passed before a certain year, can't be abridged before a certain year. So now we've covered all of the constitutional amendments and what the Constitution says in Section 3, Article 3, Section 3 talks about adhering to the enemies of the United States and giving them aid and comfort commits treason. Okay. So, the one thing the 15th, 19th, 24th, and 26th Amendments state what cannot be used to discriminate when it comes to voting, which is race, sex, poll tax, and age. Okay. So, in all of that, is there any mention of providing an ID to be able to vote? No. It's not illegal to be asked to produce a valid ID to be able to cast your vote. It's not. I mean, we have to give an ID to purchase tobacco products, alcoholic products, and even to prove we're allowed to operate a motor vehicle when stopped by law enforcement, we have to produce an ID. To rent a hotel room or even rent a car, you have to produce a valid ID. So, why should it be such a hard thing to produce, to ask, and to require an ID to cast your vote? Why? Why would that be such an issue? Again, we go back to um, Section 2 of the 14th Amendment. It's all about getting votes that's going to keep these people in office, that's going to help these people maintain their authority. That's all it's all about. I mean, it really, that's what it boils down to. And what we talked about in our last one about not creating a um, hierarchy, a higher classification of people. I think it was our second episode when we talked about that, when we discussed the letters, um, when they were discussing the ratification of the Constitution from the Articles of Confederation, which was our first governing document for our country, and when we were moving to the Constitution. So it's a moot point to argue not to give an ID to vote. It's a moot point because if you are a citizen of the United States, whether born or naturalized, you're going to have an ID. You're going to have a way to be identified. Yeah, if you don't have a driver's license, you can get a state ID with your picture on it. From the same place you get your driver's license. So, like, if you can't drive or you don't want to drive, you can still get an ID. You can. There's nothing holding you back from getting that. Yes, I think sometimes that some of the rules they have, you got to have 17 letters from 18 previous employers, and I'm being facetious there. But there's no reason you can't get a state ID. Period. None. The only reason you can't is because you are an undocumented immigrant or an illegal immigrant, which means you have no right to vote anyway. All of these rights that we talked about, all of these amendments start with, what is it they start with? Oh, let's just the right of citizens of the United States. Now, it doesn't say natural born citizens, it doesn't say naturalized citizens, citizens. But if you look at the opening of the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States. So there's no reason to be against voter ID unless you are trying to overthrow the government by allowing undocumented and illegal persons to vote in our elections. But these people are not protected by our laws. They are not, because they are not citizens of our country. They are illegal. They are criminals by their very act of how they got into our country. They are illegals. They are criminals, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no way you can justify it. They're criminals because they broke our laws that govern our country. And then we have people who take what is intended for the citizens of our country and they give it to these people who are not citizens of our country, who have no right to our resources. If you want our resources, enter our country legally, and we will not withhold those resources from you. Once you are in our country legally, we will not withhold those resources from you. But if you have crossed our borders without doing it properly and legally, then you are a criminal. And there's no protection for you. You're not due anything from our country except a plane ride back to the country you came from. It's that simple. It is seriously that simple. And I don't want to hear, well, but there's children. Sorry. They shouldn't be here either. And they wouldn't be here if their parents hadn't made that decision or if they weren't shipped in here illegally. Do I say put them in handcuffs? Nah, I mean let's be gentle with them, but send them back. They're not citizens. They're not due the protection of our nation. They're not due our resources. They are not protected to um, they're not protected by our laws to allow them to continue to have life, liberty, or property in our country until they are citizens of our country. It's that simple. I mean, it really is. And I guess that's why I struggle so much hearing people talk about this because they speak ignorantly. They speak from what they don't know and what they don't understand. I just, our Constitution of our country, and, I keep saying that our country is the greatest country in the world. Okay. If, if we weren't, would we be having this much issue with people trying to get into our country illegally without doing it the proper way? No, no. You don't see people trying to sneak into Saudi Arabia or Iran. No, they're trying to get out of there, but you don't see them sneaking in illegally and wanting to stay there. Why is that? It's because the United States is the land of opportunity. It's the greatest country in the world, and we have the greatest people in the world. A lot of people have, as as I was growing up, they described the country as, the United States as a mixing bowl, saying that, like you can, we have so many people from so many different places, and we all come here and we all get mixed up and blah blah blah. I see what they're saying, but hear me out. I'm going to say that we are the United States is a salad. Okay, because you mix lettuce and tomato and all the good things that you put into a salad. You mix all that together and it makes a great thing, a great meal. But when you put an egg in a salad, it doesn't cease to be an egg. It adds its strength to the salad. Same way with lettuce. You throw lettuce into a salad, it doesn't cease to be lettuce. It just adds its strength to the salad. Okay? So that's why I describe the United States as a salad, because we have all these different parts and all these different nationalities and all these different people from all these different places in the world who have come here illegally, and they are naturalized citizens or working to become naturalized citizens of the United States. And when they do this, they only enrich our country. Undocumented migrants, undocumented, I'm just going to call them what they are, and they're illegal immigrants. They are not adding anything to our country, but they are subtracting. They're taking away our resources. They're taking away our abilities. That is my take and what the Constitution has to say about this going on right now, the citizenship. Why that should even be a question, I don't know. Why our Congress people are committing treason against our nation, adhering to declared enemies of our country, and why people are still giving aid and comfort to those same people, and then wondering why they're getting arrested when ICE sweeps in, because ICE can't, they take everybody and then they sort them out, and that's just the way it should be. Because if you're a legal immigrant, you're not going to be hanging out with those who aren't. I mean, would you? No, because I mean that's part of you becoming a citizen, is to not break our laws, right? So, in your comments, let me know what you think. Let's talk about this, because this is a very hot topic, and I really, really, really want people's opinion on this. Um, and if I'm wrong, look, give me some evidence. Give me some documentation. I've got documentation. I've got those things I talked about. I printed them all. I've got the entire Constitution right here. Okay. I've got the entire Articles of Confederation right here. Carry them with me. So let's talk about it. Okay. I gave you my opinion. I gave you my thoughts on it, but I also gave you the facts. And the facts are, if you are an undocumented immigrant, an illegal immigrant, you have no rights to due process, no rights, period. You have no rights to any of our benefits. But if you are a legal immigrant, if you have done the paperwork and you are working towards citizenship, or you are a naturalized citizen of the United States, great. And if you are, then We don't withhold from our own, but that's how we become stronger, and that's how we are strong. So again, please share this video, comment on this video, like it, click that little bell so that you get notifications when I post more content. And please share this video. Let's let this thing get out and about and hear something else besides the talking heads who are, by their very act, committing treason against the United States. Because I am not. We'll talk to you later, and thanks again for watching episode 4 of Let's Talk with Aaron Johnson.